Hey guys, what's going on? It's Accessibility here. Today we're going to analyze the TEC-9 Whiteout Factory New. This skin is part of the Train 2025 collection that will be removed from the Armory Pass pretty soon. Recently its price has risen considerably, and some could consider this skin to be in the rare category. Let's analyze some data. So here we have the TEC-9 Whiteout. We're analyzing csroar.com. And the factory new for this skin currently has a very low drop rate of only 0.46%. So what we would imagine with this is that there's probably not that many skins out there factory new, right? This number represents the lowest drop rate in the entire collection for any skin. So if we look at the long dog, for example, the factory new is 3%. Of course, since it's in a red category, it's not going to drop. Its drop rates are lower than purple. However, it's still 3% within the red. The factory new whiteout is 0.46%, right? And we can also see its float cap. It's from 0.06 to 1. So, which makes it kind of difficult to trade up to when it comes to factory new conditions. If we look at the CS Float database, we can see here that there's only 3,645 TEC-9 Whiteout in factory new conditions, which is pretty good, I guess, for a skin that's been out for a year. Its drop rates are low, so we wouldn't expect that many skins out there, since even the trade ups aren't that that easy. So this is a very good number if we analyze, for example, the number of skins of whiteout skins out there. We have the USPS whiteout, we have the P250 whiteout, the MP7 whiteout, and the TEC-9 whiteout. And if we compare these skins, we can see, for example, let's look at the USPS whiteout. There is 4,283 of these skins out there. So this represents the highest number of whiteouts skins from compared to the rest of the whiteout factory new skins, right? That's why it's in red. We can see that the lowest one is the MP7 with 237. The TEC-9 whiteout sits at 3,000, and we have the P250. So as you can see here, the TEC-9 has the lowest number of skins according to the CS Float DB. And it's the most expensive one listed on CS Float, which is being listed right now at its cheapest price for $950. So, quantity reflects rarity, which reflects price. As you can see here, the most expensive skin listed on Steam is the USPS whiteout, which is also interesting because it has the highest number. So you might expect the P250 to be the highest, but that's actually the USPS. And then its CS float value is 750. We also have the P250 with the, I would say, lowest CS float value. And then the MP7 with the highest CS float value. And at last, the whiteout at 559 with its lowest ask. So what is interesting here also is that the P250 has actually lower quantities. However, it's cheaper than a TEC-9, which means that we need to keep an eye out for the TEC-9. Maybe the TEC-9 factory new at this point is too expensive, right? So it's always good I like to compare some of these skins. Of course, they're its own category. The TEC-9 still drops, but in my opinion, it should not be more expensive than the P250. So always good to keep an eye out on similar skins, analyze the price, and check, is this too much at this moment. So if you enjoy this type of content, remember to like and subscribe so you can receive notifications of new videos and support me in creating content like this one. Alright, so let's look at the price graph here at CSGO skins. So if we scroll down here for the factory new whiteouts, we can see that, past month, right before the update, it was sitting at around $356. And then right on the update, announcement, it just went up was that almost $100, and then it went up to 500, and now it's around $400 to $500. So that's like, $150 spike. If we see, look at the last 7 days, it went up 39% based on some of these charts. So, that's a considerable amount. If you're thinking of, investing in this skin, it could be pretty risky. I think it's something to think about. It's a pretty good looking skin. I think people just like white skins. It to me, it would make, a good pair with the op pinstream, and just the white loadout looks pretty sick, as you can see here. Just great looking skin. So one thing to keep in mind is that it might be interesting to look at the whole collection, right? If you, at this point, um, it's important to analyze if the factory new is worth it or not. I think, whoever bought it. Right now, it's, very expensive. However, you can look at the blues, right? There's the dark blues here that you can, there's a lot cheaper skins like the XM 1014. You have the Glock, which is kind of more expensive due to its, float cap, and you also have the which is a little bit more expensive due to the float cap, but it's, a lot cheaper than the whiteout for investment purposes. And then you can also look at the light blues, where you have, the AUG steel sitting at $7, and the P90 at 582. So these, still had a good bump up, but it's a lot more cheaper than, the whiteout itself. And we kind of, I would expect people to want to trade up to the whiteout once this collection is out. So maybe thinking long term, these skins are probably gonna go up in price.